Hello, friends, and welcome to the first of many Excel single case design graphing overviews. I apologize for the lack of video and graphic formatting. Hopefully, my video posting behavior and video creation behavior will shape to be a little bit more visually appealing with time, but for now, I have the wonderful tools that are screen capture and a microphone. Today's video, or this video, is simply to orient to the spreadsheet. In Microsoft Excel, I will be posting videos along the theme of graphing exercise duration, and there will be links in the notes that should link to the files. I pause when I say should because as with basically everything in this whole Persevere book enterprise, I'm a novice at this, so if you have any difficulties with this, with links, with anything, email perseverebook@gmail.com and email that email address also if you have Excel graphing troubleshooting, any sort of questions related to Microsoft Excel and single case design. I have more than enough experience answering them, and it does not take me much time to hop on a quick screen recording and record it that way instead of typing out an email and you trying to decipher what I mean. You'll notice in this one that there are really no numbers, and that is on purpose. One other thing that I should mention before we get going is I might use highlighting to orient you to what I am talking about. I will do my best to do that and to do anything that can help orient you to what I'm talking about. Please know that Microsoft Excel tends to make people lose the ability to focus, and I will do anything to try and mitigate that because this is an incredibly powerful tool for graphing data, whether it's yours or if you are in the behavior analysis game, graphing other folks' data. If you're in the behavior analysis game, I simply loathe and detest any program that automatically graphs for you. It does not show you where it's putting the dots, and consequently, you are unable to do a number of things that would help the folk that you're helping. This is a manual calculation graph for exercise duration per day. I will walk you through this a little bit. I'm going to zoom in. If you ever want to zoom in, you can hit Control and the up scrolly button, and that's how I did that. And if you ever want to zoom out, you can hit Control and you can use the down scrolly. Scrolly being, I'm sure, the exact technical term for the computer hardware folk. Anywho, I'm going to go column by column. Week number, this is pretty self-explanatory. Exercise duration being something that, yes, you probably want to have happen on more days than not. You do need rest days. As I woke up this morning, I noticed that I need a rest day or an active rest day, which might be just a little light yoga or a little light jogging, something like that to keep me active, but not to go full bore on it. Exercise being something that probably occurs across the week. If you have a behavior that goes to the workday, you can, of course, shorten that to just a work week. I number 1, 2, and 3 down here because these are going to be the bottom numbers on our graph, which we will not be touching upon in this particular video. One handy thing that I do want to show you while we are here is if you want to continue these numbers down in the pattern that they are. So 1, 2, 3, the next ones would be 4, 5, 6, 7. If you highlight by left clicking and selecting the boxes or the cells, box and cell are interchangeable. The boxes that you want to use as your pattern, and if you come down to it, I know it's probably not super visible. If you come down to the bottom right and your plus turns from a large plus with a white interior to a smaller plus with a black interior. When it turns into the smaller version, left click and drag down. You can even see that there's a little box to the, or a little numbery box there. I'm getting very super technical with the language. And you pull down and it pulls them all the way down. I'm going to click undo just to keep things a little simple. Week starting. It helps tremendously if you correlate dates with these numbers. Correlate meaning associate. I do not use time as the bottom numbers on the graph on the x-axis because that tends to make Excel do things that are incredibly strange, like track those time rules all over the place, and you put a 0 in a cell and all of a sudden what pops up is January 1, 1900, because that's what happens when you put 0 in a cell that Excel is expecting a date into. It's going to seem slightly strange. This is the way that I have learned to do this. So if I was starting it today, which is 4/3/24, that is how I would type it in there. I would use decimal points instead of backslashes. This keeps Excel from treating it as time, and keeping Excel as treating it from time is the absolute best thing that you can possibly do. You can't fill right, you can't fill down. If you ask it to do anything with 4.3.24, it's going to also lose its mind. But at least this way, it won't track those problematic time rules all over your spreadsheet like a child with mud on their shoes. I'm going to delete this out just for the sake of visual clarity. Phase. I believe it's chapter 9. It's chapter 8 or 9 in the book where we talk about the different phases. And we have baseline, which is hopefully no changes, no intervention. It's your true resting state. It's your natural form for that particular behavior that you're measuring. It really helps to not only correlate those bottom numbers with the time so that if something gets goofed up, that you have something there to orient you to where you need to look. But then, of course, because you will be dividing up your graph based on the phase, that you list that there as well. So the common shorthand is BL for baseline, TX for treatment. Many of you, like me, will have multiple treatments, so it might end up TX1 and TX2 as it goes down, correlating with the weeks on your A there. And I actually forgot in this one, pay no attention to that. You should have a notes column in every single graph and every single data sheet you ever use, because that is the repository for anything that would explain data that if you look back at it and you're wondering, how the heck did I ever get there? If you saw my exercise example from the book where the very last week it shoots up to, I believe, 120 minutes or some huge number per day, and my note was only 4 days this week, no rest days. And that helped explain why that average was so much higher, because every other of the weeks in that graph had rest days as part of the week, and that one did not, because I happened to exercise 4 consecutive days. Notes can be something like visited grandma, like anything that you need to know. Was ill, had the flu, had to take the kid to hockey tournament across the state. Anything that needs to go in there, you put in there. I'm probably going to be beat a dead horse about a number of things. One of them will be you never, ever change your data based on any sort of excuse or any sort of interpretation of it. The data are always put in as they are. You can always leave a note that says, this is why this is this way. You always base your decisions off the cold, hard data. I know it's going to be tempting to do otherwise. Always off the data. You'll notice also that as I scroll to the right here a little bit, leaving the notes there so that you can orient to that, I have raw data, I have total days, but then I have these blank columns in between. And this is merely preference and personal preference to help visually separate out the things that I need to know. Even for me, sometimes when everything is smushed together in a spreadsheet, it becomes difficult to tell where I want my eyes and my visual attention to go and pay attention to, so that I can most readily and quickly alter that spreadsheet, enter data, and have it do what I really need it to do. And one of the things that I found to be helpful is leaving a blank column between certain aspects of the spreadsheet to aid in that locating very, very quickly. Here, raw data is the numbers. When we move on to the adding up of the raw data, the graphing raw data, the way that it's going to look is we're going to manually calculate it with a calculator so that we simply type in a number. I don't know if that's the number, but we can do it that way. There are a couple of different options for raw data that we will come across. There are a couple of different ways that we can graph the same data. The first way through, I'm going to leave out the calculation and let you all do it by hand, because that will break this up into steps a little bit more readily for the Excel novices. This will end up being the I should just call it exercise. You're going to see as we go through that I will be altering things as I go and not bothering to re-record an entire video. So exercise minutes instead of raw data, but that's what your raw data is. By raw, I mean unanalyzed. Nothing to translate it for the graph. So if we had 89, we also need to know the total days in the week. 7. It could be 4 if it ended the year. It could be 5 if you're doing a work week. Deleting those out. And if you've noticed that I've been automatically widening the columns, how you do that is you take your cursor, you see between the I and the J, when I hover over the column vertical line, that it turns into a black line with arrows pointing to the left and right. Once that happens, if I double click, it automatically adjusts the column width so that everything will fit in there. What will fit in here is this. This is where you're going to put your formula in. Numbers from the sheet, that'll be the top part, divided by this will equal that. This will be the y-axis of the spreadsheet. This will be the part that goes up and down. This will be the dots that you're concerned about. 2 other things here quickly. I'm going to scroll to the right. And we have a bunch of things that and I'm going to do a bunch of this. And then I'm going to save this one, because then for the next one, we won't have this issue. Major phase X, major phase Y. Our major phases are our solid lines that separate out significantly different parts of our graph, most notably baseline from treatment. If you use a line graph in Microsoft Excel, you will be drawing these in yourself, and every time your x-axis changes, your lines stay the same, and it becomes incredibly annoying to fix over and over and over again. The way to fix this is we will have things like and this is a little esoteric and not necessarily understood, what it pays to introduce you to this now, because when we use this, it's basically telling the graph to draw a line between 3 and 4, starting at the bottom of the graph, going to the top. So when we do that, it'll look like that. That would be the same for the minor phases. Say you have a significant change in the treatment, but it doesn't go from treatment to baseline. That's what that will look like. And then our CCX and CCY will look a little differently. If you're using a changing criterion where you're trying to clear the bar, and once you consistently clear the bar, raise the bar, once you consistently clear that and raise it, that you might have something that looks a little bit more like and now let's make it slightly more common, so that if you were trying to clear a 20-minute exercise goal, that it would start between 7 and 8, and then it would go between 14 and 15 to show where that line goes. You should not remember all of this material by now. You hopefully, when this pops back up over and over and over again, because I want to give you that many examples and that much practice or ability just to use it for yourself, that you've at least seen it before, and when I talk about it, you don't have that acquisition of what is he talking about and how do I learn it. You've at least seen what is he talking about, so that you're just left with how I learn it. I know not everybody will have my passion for Microsoft Excel, not necessarily for the program, but for the utility of it in behavior change. I thank you for your patience and your attention, and I will keep on posting these along the line.